Let's welcome now, in conversation with the President of Chile, Tian Wei of CGTN, on the challenge of inclusive growth. Over to you, Tian Wei.
Welcome to the session on the challenge of inclusive growth. My name is Tian Wei, moderator and host of World Insight with CGTN, here based in Beijing. It's such an honor to host a session with Mr. President coming from the Republic of Chile, His Excellency, Mr. Sebastián Pinera. Mr. President, what a pleasure.
Wei, good morning, good night, good evening, whatever. Here we are in the springtime and taking advantage of a beautiful morning, and we are ready to talk about the future.
The future and the inclusive growth, as that is the key word in our topic today. How do you see the issue of inclusive growth at the time we were facing the huge challenge of COVID-19, Mr. President?
Well, first of all, I think that growth has to be inclusive and sustainable. Otherwise, there will be no growth. And we better understand that. The sooner, the better. Now, of course, we are facing huge challenges, like the pandemic of coronavirus, the international economic recession. But even in the middle of these hard times, we should never forget that growth has to be inclusive and sustainable. First of all, I remember when in 1994, when the APEC was created in Indonesia, we set the core values of APEC. And among those core values were, first of all, equal partnership, shared responsibility, mutual respect, common interest, and common benefit. And to achieve those goals, growth will have to be much more inclusive and much more sustainable than what we have done up to now.
Mr. President, it's wonderful that you are reminding us of those important goals. Having said that, though, how to implement those goals into real actions? How do you see the challenges and the opportunities that are existing in your country right now?
Well, Chile has had a very good period in the last 30 years. When we recovered our democracy in 1990, up to now, we have experienced a good process because we recovered our democracy in a peaceful way. We were able to multiply by 5 our per capita income. We were able to become the country with the highest per capita income and the highest human development index, to reduce poverty, to increase equality of opportunities, but none of that is enough. That's why we are now trying to introduce the concept of inclusiveness and sustainability in all our public policies. And we are facing big challenges and big threats like everywhere else in the world. Of course, we are facing this pandemic. Fortunately, we have had 5 months of improvement in terms of less people getting contagious, less people losing their lives. And that's something that we have to keep because we know that the second wave is always a threat. And at the same time, we're trying to recover our economy and recover our capacity to create jobs. Those are the main targets and the main goals that we are pursuing in the Chilean situation.
Mr. President, you mentioned several priorities of your work right now in your country. Let's look at some of those one by one. The pandemic situation. Now, your country has been cooperating with a number of pharmaceutical companies around the world on the vaccines and also testing of vaccines. How do you see the speed of vaccine development, and how do you see the potential of your country to be able to receive the vaccines and to be able to vaccinate your people in an efficient way, Mr. President?
Well, that's the stage that we are working on now, because remember that the first stage was when we knew about this virus, was to prepare ourselves, to increase the capacity of our health system to be able to provide all the medical services that the people would need, to increase the capacity of tracing, testing, and putting in isolation those people that are contagious. And we did that. It was a huge effort. We had very difficult times from mid-May until mid-June. But in the last 5 months, we have been able to reduce the number of people getting sick, the number of people losing their lives, and we want to keep it that way. But of course, we are also working in the vaccine. That will be the real solution. The real solution, I think, for the pandemic will be a vaccine. And the real solution for the social problem will be a strong economy. And we have to work those two goals simultaneously. In terms of the vaccine, we hope that we will have a secure and effective vaccine. Sometimes, I hope, in the early part of next year. In our case, we have already reached agreement with some international organization like COVAX, where it's the World Health Organization, the European Union, and many countries like Chile. We have joined forces to have access to that vaccine. But at the same time, we have signed contracts with some of the most promising prospects, like, for instance, Pfizer. So we hope that we will be able to have the vaccine and protect our people by the beginning of next year.
At this moment, you're trying to keep a balance between economic recovery and also prevention and control of the pandemic. Now, that's really a very delicate balance. We have seen economies closing down, opening up from time to time over the past few months. How do you look at that balance, Mr. President?
Very difficult and very thin balance. But we have to consider both at the same time. Because if we only concentrate on fighting the pandemic and we forget about how to recover the economy, people will suffer from other evils like unemployment, poverty, hunger. And if we only concentrate our effort in the economic recovery, people will suffer from the pandemic. So we have to have those two things in our mind and work with both of them simultaneously. That's why we have set up two plans in Chile. One is called Step by Step We Protect Ourselves, which is a deconfinement plan to give more flexibility, more freedom to people, but keeping the precautions in terms of washing your hands, using a mask, keeping your social distance. And the other plan is Step by Step We Recover Our Economy. Right now we have 5 months of improvement in the fight against the pandemic and 4 months of recovery of our economy and our capacity to create jobs. So we are moving in the right direction. It doesn't mean that we don't have problems. We are still facing huge problems, but we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
The other thing you mentioned in your earlier remarks is about the social inequality. You said the UN administration is trying to handle. Now, that has been a concern for some years, Mr. President. How to address those difficult issues that has been in the making throughout history and be able to address it in an efficient way under the current circumstances when the economy are suffering? That's really, I guess, a huge question for you every day. Tell me more about your latest plan.
It's true that we have been working during the last 30 years, many governments, to reduce inequalities in Chile and to increase equality of opportunity. But we have achieved great results, but not enough. We still have too high levels of inequality, and we are not close enough to have a real equality of opportunity. How are we dealing with this? I think that there are three major tools. The first one is to strengthen the families. When you have strong families, you have better education, you have less delinquency, you have more opportunities. The second, to create jobs, because to create jobs and allow everybody that wants to work to have a good job with a fair salary is a key aspect. The third area where we're working on very hard is to improve the quality of education, particularly early education, because that's where you can really reduce inequalities of origins and to move forward towards more equalities of opportunity. So basically, to strengthen the family, because so many things depends on the strength and the quality of the family. To create jobs for everybody and to improve the quality of education, I think are the three major tools to tackle this inequality problem that we have in Chile and in many other countries in Latin America.
These are aspirational goals, certainly, Mr. President. On the other hand, how do you see, the being of the region, Asia Pacific, particularly as we are in the session, has been and the environment for your economy and also for your economy to create jobs for your young people?
Well, it's true that, as we were mentioning at the beginning, that growth and development has to be inclusive. It means it has to be for everybody. If we left some people behind, it doesn't work. And at the same time, it has to be sustainable. So we have to take care of nature and the environment. Chile has a very ambitious plan. For instance, Chile has committed itself to become a carbon neutral country, zero net emissions before 2050. And for that, we are doing many things. First of all, we are decarbonizing our energy matrix, substituting coal and oil and gas for solar energy, wind energy, and we are doing that at a very fast pace. Actually, more than 95% of the investment in energy right now in Chile is with renewable, clean energies. The second thing is that we are doing is transform our transportation system from a system based on fossil fuels to a system based on electricity. And in the future, I think they will be based on green hydrogen. We are very, very committed because since we have solar energy, we can produce green hydrogen, which means it's a source of energy which is absolutely clean and renewable. So we are working very much in trying to not only to produce green hydrogen for our country, but to be a main exporter to the international community. And the last thing is we're taking good care of our forest and reforesting a good part of our country. With those three things, we are moving very rapidly, according to our pace, to become a carbon neutral country.
Now, Mr. President, when you look at the paramount challenges for the economies around the world at a time when COVID-19 has been a big challenge for everyone, how do you see an economy of your stage will be able to achieve those goals on a sustainable path, Mr. President?
Well, it's true that the world is facing huge challenges and threats, and maybe we're not prepared for that. Let me tell you why. I think that now, when we are facing global warming, climate change, coronavirus pandemic, is when you need more than ever the collaboration with the international community. And really, I see that the two superpowers, the US and China, that should be leading this effort to control climate change and global warming, to collaborate to tackle with the pandemic, are not collaborating enough. That's why I think that we need a new governance, a new international governance, because what we have now is not enough. For instance, the World Health Organization is very weak, and we have to understand that to tackle and to face the huge challenges that we are facing now, we need collaboration, we need multilateralism. It cannot be solved by each country on its own. We need collaboration, and we are not having the kind of collaboration that is necessary. For instance, in the case of the pandemic, we are not seeing that collaboration. In the case of free trade, we are not seeing that collaboration. In the case of global warming, we are not seeing that collaboration. I think that the world has to wake up and understand that to face the challenge of today and the opportunities of tomorrow, we need a stronger international governance and more collaboration, particularly between the superpowers.
Mr. President, over the past few days, I've been talking to business leaders and also some political leaders to prepare for today's discussion. Some of them have also been talking and also articulate things in the way you just did. And some also pointed out there is an opportunity now. It seems to be opening there for major powers to cooperate and also for the improvement of international governance. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that we have to rethink the whole international architecture, which was built after the Second World War for a different world. So one thing is to strengthen the United Nations, to strengthen the World Trade Organization, which is not playing its role, to strengthen the World Health Organization. Those are some areas or some path that we will have to follow. But for that, we need to have a better relationship between the US and China. Because those are the two superpowers of modern times. And without their commitment and collaboration, it will be very difficult to move forward. It's not enough to have China and the US. The whole world has to collaborate. But I think that we realized that to face threats, huge threats, like global warming and climate change, we don't have the kind of tools and the kind of institution to face the pandemic, the coronavirus, and the pandemic that will come in the future. This is not the last one. It has been the worst one, but it's not the last one. And so we have to realize that we need to move forward and strengthen the international governance.
Earlier, the representative of the organizing committee in Malaysia has been talking about collaboration, cooperation. Also been hearing from some of the leaders before our talk today has been also delivering their speeches touching on keywords such as cooperation. That includes, if I remember right, the Chinese President Xi Jinping. So tell me, Mr. President, from your perspective, how do you think cooperation can be done? What will be the first things that economies from the Asia-Pacific region can cooperate on, and the launching pad for that cooperation to take place after being delayed for several years?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate Malaysia because they have done a great job in organizing this 2020 APEC meeting. It's a very peculiar meeting because of the pandemic has been through the nets and the technological tools. But they have done a great job, and I want to appreciate that and congratulate them for that. The second thing is, as we were mentioning before, that we have to, first of all, the main goal of APEC is to create a free trade zone in the Asia-Pacific area. That's the main goal, and we are not yet there. That was established in Bogor, and we are not moving fast enough. So the first thing is that we have to keep and strengthen our commitment to create a free trade zone in the Asia-Pacific area. There have been some improvements. For instance, the RCEP, this free trade area that has just been agreed in the Asia area. What we're doing in South America with the Pacific Alliance, those are steps towards that direction. But the main goal is to have one single free trade zone, including all the countries that are members of the APEC. That's something that we have to do. The second thing that we have to realize that we have to introduce more equality, more inclusiveness. And in that, we have to take a special care and have a special commitment with how to give to our women the same rights, opportunities than men. And that's something that we can do much better than what we have done up to now. This, in terms of equal salary for equal jobs, access to the job market, access to leadership positions, access to key educational areas. Those are things that we have to move faster. The second thing, how to incorporate to this integration effort to all the small, medium-sized enterprises, because we want this APEC free trade zone to work for everybody and to be beneficiary for everybody. And the last thing is, I think that those are the targets, but we have a magnificent ally. We have problems, the global warming, the coronavirus pandemic, but we have a huge ally, which is the tremendous technological and digital revolution that we're experiencing. So we have the problems here, we have the tools here, we have to use the tools to solve the problems. That's the main, I think, the main challenge that APEC is facing today.
Digitalization certainly is a great tool to advance some of the important causes you mentioned, Mr. President. But at the same time, we also see divide and gaps of infrastructure for digitalization, for example, in different parts of the world. How do you, as President of Chile, see that issue? And how do you think you and other political leaders could work together to make it improve?
Well, it's true that digitalization is a magnificent opportunity, tool, instrument, but it has also some dangers because it could increase inequality instead of continuing to decrease inequality. That's why it's so important that digitalization has to achieve and reach each and every corner of our country, each and every family. That's why in Chile we're working very hard, not only in introducing new technology. We're about to introduce the 5G technology, which will change the game because it's so much more powerful and faster and more reliable. But we have to also to make sure that everybody will have access to these new technologies, because otherwise we will have a divided society, those that have access to the digital revolution and those who don't. And we don't want that. That's why we are creating a network, so to guarantee that every single home and every single school and every single person in Chile will have access to these technologies. And the other things that we want to connect, that's why we are working very hard to have a submarine cable that will connect South America with Asia. And therefore, we don't have to rely or to go through the US or Europe in order to reach a direct connection with Asia.
Those are grand goals. How long do you think that can be achieved, Mr. President?
5G, we hope that that we are already in the auction process. So we hope that 5G technology will be available, will start to be available in Chile next year. And we also think that the international cable, the submarine cable, that is a joint effort between Brazil, Chile, and other Latin American countries, will be in place in the near future.
How do you see, sir, the synergy within your region, Latin, for example, about trade, about narrowing the divide of digitalization, about reaching out to create more free trade and trade for mutual benefits?
Well, we have a lot to do to increase the opportunity for free trade based on rules and with strong institutions that can guarantee that trade will be fair and that the rules will be respected. How to take advantage of that? Of course, that the digitalization revolution will facilitate. It will be, I hope that someday to sell one product from one neighborhood to another neighbor in Chile will be as easy as to sell that same product from a Chilean neighborhood to a Chinese neighborhood. And digitalization and a uniformity of process and systems and rules will facilitate that. So at one day, free trade will be really free trade, and we will be able to access the best offers all over the world to satisfy the needs of the customer all over the world.
By the way, just for your information, Mr. President, the Chilean wine and also the berries coming from your country are selling very well in my parts of the world. And of course, so are your other partners in Latin America and other trading nations with China.
Well, but by the way, Chilean wine is very good for your health, but you have to consume wine carefully.
Okay, another fine balance, as you said, Mr. President. Now, there's another issue. Many of us are extremely curious about what happened last year and whether we will be able to travel to Chile in the future, because last time we missed the APEC meeting. So can you tell us about the latest development?
Well, as I was telling you before, in the last 30 years, Chile has made great progress in terms of recovering and strengthening our democracy, in terms of economic development, in terms of reducing poverty, in terms of increasing opportunity, increasing our life expectancy. But it doesn't mean that we don't have troubles. We had some problems, particularly that we still have excess inequality, and we need to have a more inclusive society. And that was, you know, that we were organizing the 2019 APEC meeting and the 2019 COP meeting. And we had to postpone both of them because we had some social unrest and many problems in Chile that we are facing. How have we been facing that? First of all, speeding up and strengthen the social network to reduce inequality and to move faster towards greater equality of opportunities. And we are working on that with a very strong commitment. The second thing is that we also are working in finding a path in order to reach an agreement with respect to our constitution, which was one of the main issues that were discussed last year. Now we have an agreement. We had a constitutional reform, which was plebiscite on October the 25th. It was approved, the path, by a huge majority of Chileans, almost 80%, and we're following with that path to reach a new agreement with respect to our social pact, to respect to our constitution. So that we are doing that within the democratic system, within the rule of law. And the third aspect is that we have to, of course, to be able to control the pandemic of the coronavirus, and at the same time, to recover all the jobs that we've lost. We've lost, at the worst part of the cycle, almost 2 million jobs. We have already recovered 700,000, but we need to keep moving in that direction and reactivating our economy. So basically, we had these signals that we have to, at the end of last year, that we have to move faster and with a stronger commitment towards more equality, more equality of opportunity, and to solve basic problems. So growth is not enough. It has to be inclusive, and it has to be sustainable.
Mr. President, my last two questions. First of all, there are a lot of business leaders from around the world that are listening to our conversation right now. What kind of environment do you and your administration will be able to create so that investors and business leaders would feel confident about doing business and doing investment in your country? Briefly.
Well, by the way, we received a report by the APEC international community with a lot of recommendations. We read that, and we agree with most of those recommendations. Chile is a country based on democracy and the rule of law. So you can count that in Chile, the rule of law is respected, and we have a democratic, open, and a society which is integrated to the whole world. We have free trade agreement with almost every country in the world: China, Japan, the US, Europe, you name it. So those are two basic things: the democratic society, and we respect and we are fully committed with the rule of law. At the same time, we are committed with an integration to the world. That's why we have all these free trade agreements, and we have also this political and cultural agreement to collaborate. And in Chile, we have great opportunities for investment. As I was telling you before, I think that Chile is a superpower in many areas. For instance, the production of food, fruits, wine, salmon. Those are very powerful industries that have a huge perspective to keep growing. We have a mining sector which is very strong and very powerful. We have also the new renewable clean energies: solar energy, wind energy, green hydrogens are very powerful, and we have a huge perspective and opportunities in the future. So it's very important that for investors that want to come to Chile, that they are fully aware that they will find a democratic country with the rule of law and huge and great opportunity to invest. So let me tell you that all those investors are welcome to Chile.
Thank you, sir, for your information. Mr. President, my last question. We have seen the world has been changing so fast. There are also temporary challenges that we all have to face. Now, what do you consider as the most important qualities of political leadership these days? What is the best way to handle crisis and facing up to the ever-evolving challenges that all of us have to look at and confront every day?
I think it's a paradox, because we have never had so much and powerful tools, technology, science, to keep going. But at the same time, we have never had, I think, in the history of mankind, so many challenges and threats, like global warming, like this pandemic of the coronavirus, the aging of our population. And therefore, I think that the leaders have to have very clear that we are facing huge challenges, and we need to act in an honest way. We need to collaborate. We need to collaborate, because these problems will have to be faced with collaboration. And I think that trust and the knowledge and comprehension of the huge challenges that we are facing and the will to act. For instance, in terms of climate change, science has spoken loud and clear. We are in a very risky path towards catastrophe. We need to change the course of history. The time for diagnosis is over. Now is the time for action because we don't have time. We are running out of time. And I think that in that area, we're not receiving the message. The people, particularly the young people, have asked us, have urged us as a moral challenge to move faster and tackle this problem with more will. And at the same time, we have all the tools and the technology to be effective in this challenge. So that's an area where we know that we have to move forward. We have the tools to do it, but for some reason, we are not doing what we have to do. Those are an area where collaboration between the leaders is absolutely key. And the same thing, and I think that the coronavirus pandemic has learned us, has taught us the importance of international collaborations and the importance of acting in an urgent way because we don't have time to waste or to spend with respect to the global warming challenge or with respect to coronavirus challenge.
Well said, Mr. President. Clear mind, efficient actions, honesty, and certainly collaboration. Thank you so much for sharing those keywords with us.
Wei, thank you very much. And I would like to thank all the people that have been listening for the patience.
Sebastian Pineda, the President of the Republic of Chile, what a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause around the world to His Excellency President Piñera and Tian Wei. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay in your seats for the next session coming up soon.